Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Sleepin' Sunday, and welcome to It's Special Guest Sunday. And today's special guest is extra special. His Holiness Indradyumna Swami, traveling monk, inspiration for literally thousands and thousands of students all over the world, including myself and my son, Krishna, who's joining us this morning. And I'm sure I'm speaking for Merrick and Kaustubha as well. Maharaj, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm extremely happy to be here. As I was telling you earlier, I'm one of the fans of Wisdom of the Sages. I go on regularly. So I know the program, and it's a great honor to be here. Thank you.
This is probably the first time in the last 50 years you've stopped traveling, because I know your schedule. I travel a lot, and I don't even come close to you. You've got one of those passports that's like an encyclopedia or an old school dictionary, and you just travel constantly, nonstop, and you're probably 69 years old, 70 years old, but you haven't stopped for 50 years. True. And now you're held up in Vrindavan/India for the last, how long? 7 months?
Yep. I mean, everybody's been on lockdown about 8 months now, I think, around the world. So, yeah.
Wow.
But if you have to get locked down, I think there's no better place than Vrindavan. Because, you know, as devotees, we do travel and we share our teachings with everyone around the world. But sometimes you do need to stop and kind of recharge your batteries. So I literally didn't stop for 50 years. So I'm taking this time to, work on myself. We're all works in progress. I'm chanting Hare Krishna a lot. I'm studying the scriptures a lot. I have my deity worship. So I don't feel any lack. It's just another side of being a devotee, really.
Well, I want to express a personal appreciation. There's like official bios, etc. But my personal appreciation for you is, first of all, I never met you until about the year 2000, which in retrospect is 20 years ago, which it seems like a moment ago. But you asked our band Shelter to come to Poland to play this festival. Now, if anyone has been to a rock festival, it's usually, as exciting as it sounds, it's very dark. Everybody's drunk. And usually by day 3, everybody's really drunk and they're urinating everywhere and the music is loud but they do this massive festival. When I say massive, it's like hundreds of thousands of people. And what Maharaj does is set up this incredible Bhakti Yoga festival right alongside of us. I guess the owner of the festival is a good friend of Maharaj, and they really love him. And so they turn like a camp, basically a Bhakti Yoga camp, where they have musical performances and indie cultural dancing and prasad distribution and talks. And you'd walk into this from one festival into this other festival, like adjoining it, and it's like you're walking into the spiritual world. And so Maharaj invited us to play under his tent, which still had about 10,000 people in that tent. And then they also had us play on that massive tent. And then I really got to appreciate how just by your like sincere endeavor and by your focused desire, all this was going on, and you were influencing the lives of like literally hundreds of thousands of people just in that weekend. And I developed a strong appreciation for you. But really, it was a couple years ago when we were doing our teacher training in India at the Govardhan Eco Village, and a bunch of you were with me there, including Kaustubha and Mara, that we were like next door neighbors. And every morning we used to come visit you in your house, me and my children. And then my son developed a special affection for you, and you gave him this beautiful Nrsingadev deity that was an ancient deity found in a river, and you taught him how to worship that deity, and it's like affected him in such a deep way, and it's affected our whole family. And my wife fell in love with you, and my kids fell in love with you, and it was just a beautiful meeting with you, and I treasure that. And also one more story was sometimes when we go on pilgrimage in India, people get really, really inspired from a pilgrimage. And so one lady, Mallory, who's on the show today, she got so inspired on pilgrimage. She's like, I want to stay longer in Vrindavan and just stay here. And I said, I highly recommend you don't stay. Because sometimes when people stay in India on their own without sort of a Dham guru, someone to show them how to act and live in a holy place, they just don't know what to do or know how to behave. But she was so insistent, and she was so inspired, that I went to Indradyumna Swami. I said, I have a young lady who really is inspired in bhakti, and I know you're going to be in India for at least a month, or Vrindavan for a month. Can you take care of her? And you gave her such special love and attention, and you led a Braj Mandal Parikaram, which is 30 days of holy places in the Braj area, or the Vrindavan, many forests of Vrindavan area. And I think it's safe to say, Mallory's here, it's safe to say, I'm sure it changed the trajectory of her life. And so I want to thank you for all that love you've given me, my family, my students, and thank you for being in my life.
More than welcome. I also have good memories. By the way, it wasn't a couple 100,000 at that event. In Poland, it's 2 million.
Wow.
It was 2 million.
2 million people, yeah.
And you do it every year
actually,
for a long time.
We were on the side where literally we're in the center of the event by the organizer's choice, because he told me one time, he said, I do these mega festivals all the time. He said, all over Poland, we get thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people. But when I came to one of your festivals one time, there was just something you guys had. I can't put my finger on it, but I like it. So
Krishna
come
magic.
to my event. You've got a carte blanche. You can take as much space as you want. You can sing Hare Krishna as much as you want. And please give out food to these kids because they're going to be hungry. That's our life. So we gave it our life. And so we've been doing it for 30 straight years now.
Wow.
You can imagine how many young people come in contact over 30 years. Yeah.
Amazing.
And now, because of the coronavirus, they canceled the event this year. And when I heard that, I literally cried on the telephone.
Wow.
Because for me, the greatest joy is to share the good fortune that I've inherited from my spiritual master, from this culture of India, this Vedic culture. For me, it's just, I love to share it. So that didn't happen, but I'm hoping, things will get better in time, and you can come back again with your group, and we'll sing our hearts out. They call it the Polish Woodstock.
Yeah.
We'll do it again.
Kaustubha, you want to share anything? I've done a lot of the talking, and I know you have a nice relationship with Maharaj too.
Just before we went on, Raghunath said, do you have a bio written up? Because often we read a bio of the guest. And to be honest, I didn't even think of writing up a bio or finding a bio online, because it's almost impossible to put all of your life and your accomplishments into some kind of short bio. You were just mentioning now how you derived so much from your relationship with your guru, Srila Prabhupada, and how you love to share it. And I was just thinking that in my, all of our guests that we have on here, we feel are so special. We have so many special guests. But in one way, I feel you're very extra special because we call our show Wisdom of the Sages. It's about, these drawn from the Bhagavatam, from these ancient texts of people, these very special souls whose entire life and soul was dedicated in bhakti, with love for God. And we really, in your character and in your lifestyle and in your words, we really feel that you're a person that just wholly embodies this tradition of bhakti. And as you say, you like to share it, it's almost like overflowing from you. And you're a person that has a lot of very deep realizations and who's given his heart entirely. And it comes out, I think somehow if we looked at your astrological chart or something like that, we would see that you've been gifted with a very special kind of aesthetic sense too. So in the way that you share bhakti, it manifests in these very beautiful, heart and mind captivating ways. And it's something that you've just been traveling and doing. We read in these ancient books about these great souls who would wander from town to town, sannyasis, people that had left their family behind and left their town behind and left everything behind just to wander and to share the stories and the wisdom that they carry in their heart. And really I see you as like a very clear modern day embodiment of that sage from these ancient texts. And maybe you could just start by sharing with us how as a young man you first came in contact with bhakti. I know that there's a story going back to your high school days, and maybe you could start there.
Yeah. I think everyone has a time in their lives when they have a spiritual awakening, which I think is natural because the nature of this world is such that it's a struggle. Everyone has their story. And more often than not, I find in my travels that when that moment comes in their life, people begin to question, is there an alternative? Does God exist? Can I connect with him? Is there another world existence like this? So there's different ways in which people come to that point. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that there's actually 4 types of persons who approach him. There's the person in distress. There's the person desirous of wealth. He goes to the church or the mosque or the temple and asks God for some material blessings. There's the inquisitive person. And there's the person looking for knowledge. So I think like many people, I fell into the first category, distress. I heard my spiritual master say one time, don't be surprised when things go wrong. He said, be surprised when things go right. And we always try to make it right, but it never works out. So I can't complain. My youth, I had good parents. We were well-to-do. I had opportunities for good education. But I was part of the 60s, the flower children, the hippie movement.
Yeah.
I somehow got sucked into that and made a few mistakes, pulled out of it, with some intelligence. And then I thought, what am I going to do with my life now? You get to that point when you're young, like, what am I going to do now? So I had the opportunity to go back to college, but I wasn't so much inclined. And I developed a patriotic spirit. My father was a military man, so I had that in me. So along with my football team, with the regional championships in the senior year of high school, there was 11 of us. We all got together, we're going to save America from communism, et cetera, et cetera. So we decided to join the Marines, the Marine
This
Corps.
was in 1960 or 70?
This would be about 1968.
And what part of United States were you from?
I'm from San Francisco.
San Francisco. And these were not just your football team, but they were your friends from childhood. Isn't that true?
We used to hunt rattlesnakes together. We'd go panning for gold in the Sierra Nevada mountains. We'd go surfing in Mexico. You know, we were an adventurous bunch of guys,
Hmm.
but we did everything together,
Hmm.
the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we
Okay.
were tight. We were tight. So we joined. We asked the person who enlisted us if we could stay together. We can't guarantee that. So we're not going to sign the paper unless we can stay together. So they gave us that facility. We went to boot camp in Camp Pendleton. It wasn't easy in those days because there was a war in Vietnam, so they were really training you.
Hmm.
And I was the platoon commander, and we were supposed to ship out to Vietnam, and they kept me back for advanced infantry training and officer school.
So they sent all your friends off to Vietnam,
They
and
sent
you.
everybody off to Vietnam. It was heart-wrenching. But what was more heart-wrenching, not to go too long on this, but 2 weeks later, the commander of the Camp Pendleton, he came into my office and he said, "Son, sit down." I was only 20 or 19. I was actually 19. He said, "I have some bad news for you. All of your friends were wiped out in an ambush by the Viet Cong last night. And every man died."
Oh,
You know, these are my buddies. I grew up with them since I was 5 or 6 years old. I just literally went into shock and spiraled into a depression that lasted a couple of months, like, you know, post-traumatic stress symptom without going into combat.
Hmm.
But they saw that. They saw I wasn't going to be able to do very much. They gave me an honorable discharge. Went back to San Francisco. I said, what am I going to do now? So I said, you know, where did my friends go? Why is there death? Why is there old age? Why is there disease? Asking all those questions. So I bought a Bible. I bought a Quran. I bought a Torah. I bought the Lotus Sutras of Buddha. Any spiritual book, because in those days, in Haight-Ashbury, in San Francisco, you could buy all those books.
Hmm.
I got an apartment and I read day and night for months.
wow.
I was searching, you know, for the answers to those, really you could say the most essential questions of life. Who am I? Where have I come from? What happens after death? Does God exist? I had no interest before, but that propelled me somehow or other. You know, they say sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones best learned.
Hmm.
So then from each of those books, I gained a lot, I have to say. I have many friends who are Christian priests, many priests who are Muslims who are tight. I'm very close with them. Jewish friends in Jerusalem. I mean, Buddhists everywhere. But something didn't click.
Hmm.
So then I was thinking, you know, maybe there's another book I can get. So I went back to the bookstore and I bought, the lady said, there's one book you missed. So what's it called? She said, Bhagavad Gita.
Hmm.
I bought the Bhagavad Gita. I read it. And one verse, there's 700 verses, but one verse stood out in my mind. Tadvidi paripatena, paripashana sevaya, upadekshanti teganam, gyaninas tattvadarshanaha. If you want to understand these truths, these spiritual truths, just try to approach a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively, render service to him. The self-realized souls can bless you with this knowledge because they're tattvadarshi, they've seen the truth. So I'm sitting in my apartment and I got the book, but I said, what does the book mean without a teacher? So I called up my best friend, the one who didn't join the Marines with us. I said, you know, Paul, there's that saying, go west, young man. I got a different idea. Let's go east. He said, go east. You mean New York? I said, no, not New York. Let's go to India. He said, India? I said, yeah, we'll go to India. We'll find a guru. We'll go to, they call India Bharat in old language, Bharat. I read that. He said, what does Bharat mean? I said, Bharat means the land of light. He said, oh, you mean because it's a tropical country? Come on, Paul. No, the light of knowledge. The light of knowledge. He said, yeah, but I'm getting a PhD. I said, yeah, take a year off. I said, the opulence of night is the moon. The opulence of a country is a pious king. The opulence of a family is a loving mother. But the opulence of everything is knowledge.
Wow.
So we need spiritual knowledge, Paul. Let's go. Somehow I convinced him to postpone his PhD. He never forgave me. And, and we took off for India.
Wow.
That
Can you
was
say that again? The opulent, what the knowledge one was the opulence of what is knowledge?
the opulence of the opulence of everything is knowledge.
Of everything.
Kaustubha's looking for a new tattoo. This could be it.
Pretty good one.
So yeah,
And that was the beginning of your spiritual journey. And where did you go in India?
I didn't make it.
You didn't make it.
I got as far as Istanbul, and my parents were going through some hardships. They begged me to come back. So, you know, I very much respected my parents. They brought me up. They gave me all these opportunities. I went back to help them, and eventually I got married. And but I still kept up my search. You know, there were so many yogis coming, so many personalities were coming from India in the 60s.
Yeah.
So I went to all of their lectures, and again, I appreciate it. I saw a little bit of something here, a little something there, but it was more or less a little bit impersonal or mechanical. And I was looking for something more, what I would like, more natural, more loving, I guess you could say, maybe a sentiment carrying over from my hippie days. And didn't click, but one day we went to a museum in Ann Arbor, Michigan, myself and my former wife. And there was this show paintings about Krishna. They're called Pichwai paintings from Rajasthan. Very beautiful, from the 17th century. But every picture had a blue boy in it. And he's always surrounded by cowherd boys and cowherd girls and cows, and it looked idyllic. So I asked the caretaker there, I said, he was an African-American man. I said, sir, could you tell me who's this blue boy? He said, I'm just a janitor, son. He said, but if you read the text here, he said, that's God up in heaven. And if that's what heaven is like with all those pretty girls, I'm ready to go there. Oh, I thanked him, you know, but it wasn't the right answer. But
Yeah.
Who's Krishna? The first time I heard of Krishna, we walked out of the museum, walking down the steps, and at a distance I heard boom, boom, boom. You know, when we do bhajan, when we do kirtan, it's very popular now, the kartals of Vrindavan.
Mm-hmm.
There were devotees of ISKCON on the lawn of the university, Vishnu Jan Maharaj, Brahmananda Maharaj, Subal Maharaj, and Gagamuni Maharaj, very esteemed devotees. I walked over, they were singing Hare Krishna. One monk stood up, Vishnu Jan Maharaj. He said, any questions? I said, who's Krishna? He walked over, he said, before I tell you who is Krishna, I'm going to tell you who is my spiritual master. And that clicked. Because I was looking for a spiritual master. One of our gurus, he said, our search should not be for God because he's so far away. Our search rather should be for a person, an enlightened soul who can take us to God. And I looked at my former wife and we smiled and we said, maybe these people have some love. So Maharaj sat down, he talked about Prabhupada, and I said, you know, we're interested in like something deeper. He said, this is Bhakti Yoga. I said, what does Bhakti mean? He said, Bhakti means love. It's through this yoga that we connect to the Supreme, through service to the Supreme. We connect with the Supreme. I said, hey, you guys, can you spend the weekend with us? And they did.
They invited you for a weekend?
I invited them to my apartment. They were in bare feet. They had no money.
And of course, Vishnu Jan Swami is a legend.
I turned to my wife and I said, I want to be just like that one, the big tall one, Vishnu Jan Maharaj. She said, oh yeah, that would be really nice. She didn't realize he was a sannyasi. He was a monk, meaning he wasn't married or didn't have children anyway.
For those who don't know, Vishnu Jan Swami, he was one of these very dynamic, charismatic, and celestial singers that became legendary. He's no longer alive right now, but his legend lives on through, if you just YouTube search or Google search Vishnu Jan, VISHNU JANA, Vishnu Jan Swami. You'll hear some incredible music. He was an incredible musician. Okay, so go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, I mean, I can go on for hours if you want.
Well, maybe
But
we could, at this point, shortly there, so following in his footsteps and the instructions that all they were opening you up to at that point through Krishna Bhakti, then eventually you would meet your guru.
well, there's a nice verse, because I like to connect everything to the ancient teachings. It makes it
Yeah.
authoritative. Brahmanda Brahmati Konya, Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasad, Pai Bhakti Lat Beach. It's a beautiful verse from a book called Chaitanya Charitamrita. And that verse says that the living entity, since he fell from grace, since he fell from the spiritual sky into the material creation and is wandering from birth after birth after birth for actually since time immemorial, it says, we're wandering. Somehow by the grace of the Supreme and his representative, the Guru, one comes in contact with spiritual life. Like there's that saying, seek and ye shall find.
Yeah.
The Lord's also in the heart. One of his expansions is in the heart. So he knows if a person is really sincere about gradually renouncing this world and gradually entering into enlightenment, because it's a gradual process, but you're not alone in that process because Krishna's in the heart. So he guides you step by step to a bona fide spiritual master, to a spiritual organization, to a path and the whole culture it encompasses. Now, when I look back on my life, I was just an innocent, red-blooded American boy, interested in yoga, but I had a sincere desire. Now I can see these were not accidents that I didn't make it to India. Because maybe I would have been disillusioned I might have got very sick like my friend did and came back 1 month later. I may have become this, but I don't know what, but when I came back to America, I can see how Krishna arranged for me to hear the different instructions from different groups, but make a conscientious decision to read Bhagavad Gita, pray for a spiritual master, and then I got it. It was not by accident. Nothing happens by accident in this world. Not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme. So I felt that Krishna directed me. We moved into the temple. 2 months later, Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of our movement, he asked for some young men to come to Europe to pioneer the movement there, and I shot my hand up right away. Because I always had that adventurous spirit in me.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of Bhakti Yoga. You can just remain who you are. You have to give up some bad habits, obviously, because spiritual life means discipline. But you can be a businessman, you can be an athlete, you can be, an adventurer, you can be a painter, and you dovetail that, and through that you serve Krishna. So for me, it was perfect because I liked adventure. So I said, I'm willing to go. So 2 weeks later, I was on the plane with Prabhupada to London.
Wow.
I was sitting right next to him.
Maharaj, I have a question for you. You're a monk. Why monk? Is it I'm just not living to my full potential? Is it the goal? Is it a home run to be a monk? What gave you that? What is that loud spiritual calling? And should everybody be getting that, or is it better to be on a gradual path? What would you say for a person who's asking that question? And why did you choose that particular path? Someone might even argue it's so extreme. It's almost fanatical. Why? Can't we just be more integrated? How would you respond to that?
Different strokes for different folks. I mean, in Vedic culture, there's 4 ashrams you work your way through gradually. Like I said earlier, it's a gradual path. There's brahmachari, means a celibate student. And then there's married life, which is usually around 50 years. Man and woman come together for the purpose of encouraging, inspiring, and helping each other on the spiritual path. Many hands make small work. But then there's a stage where the husband and wife, they retire from business and the family's grown up and the children are educated and have their own families. And then the husband and wife, they travel to holy places. And generally around 60 or 70 in Vedic culture, the man would leave the wife with her permission and her blessings. And he would, with all the wisdom that he's accumulated through a lifetime of being a good celibate student, a responsible householder, practicing a little renunciation. He was ready. He wasn't attracted to those things anymore. He'd gone through that experience. And he would travel all around India or around the world and share spiritual teachings with others full time, because people need to be reminded. I mean, there's many things to distract us in this world, so many things to distract us. We just have time, most people, to go to church on Sunday or the synagogue or the mosque on Friday. We're so busy, but human form of life is so valuable for reawakening our spiritual consciousness. People have to be reminded. So there has to be a certain class of men and ladies, because the wife, she would also preach, but she would preach more in the community that she came from. She would be like the one that all the girls and the ladies would go to discuss spiritual matters, etc. But the man, he would travel around the world and he would live an austere life. He would only be allowed to stay in one place 3 days, because a rolling stone gathers no moss. And he doesn't want to become attached. He wants to become attached to God or Krishna. And he gets God's blessings by sharing his wisdom with others. I'm kind of like an anomaly in the sense that I had that very strong desire in my 20s. I'd been married 11 years. And I had that experience. My wife was quite renounced as well. We discussed it together. She was going to be, you could say, a type of shelter, spiritual shelter for a very large community of devotees and children, women. And we discussed together. She gave her permission. I arranged financially for her. This is going back 40 years now. And I took sannyas at 29.
Wow.
You could say there's a risk because I'm a young man, I'm strong, I'm in the world and I've tasted the world when I was young. But the thing is, the real proof of spiritual life, if you're on the right path, whatever path you've chosen, the proof that you're on that path is you get paramdrishta nivartante, you get a higher taste. You taste the nectar, the happiness which is transcendental to this world. It's not theoretical anymore. It's not philosophical. You are tasting it. And therefore, you don't look back. You have that. You can't take sannyas until you have that conviction. Like Prabhupada told one of my godbrothers when he took sannyas, never look back and think you've left anything behind. And don't envy the people who look like they're enjoying in this world. But go and teach them what is real enjoyment. And what is real enjoyment? It's condensed. It's condensed in this age in a very easy form. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. It's present in his name. So I like chanting. So I can honestly say I've never had a problem. I enjoy Krishna consciousness. And I enjoy introducing it to others, even though it's very austere to travel. For 40 years now, I have probably not stayed in most places more than 3 days. You can imagine how many beds I've slept in, how many taxis I've taken, how many airplanes. But I do it because I want to help people, and I feel obligated to my guru because he gave me this life. And he asked me to do this. One time Prabhupada sat me down, he said, Indradyumna, you preach boldly, you take risks. Don't go to the easy places. You go to the hard places. And you share Krishna consciousness with others, and you develop a deep faith in this holy name. So that's a whole nother story, how I served my Guru Maharaj by following those instructions, like where I went.
There are many stories.
Places I've been.
Kaustubh, I was just thinking, like, for most of us, the idea of I'm going home, there's like a sense of like, here's my home, here's my pad, here's my place where I feel very comfortable. The sannyasi is supposed to be giving up this sense of I have a home. I'm actually homeless. And when you don't have that material security, I'm really trying to appreciate what you're saying and what you actually accept as normal. It's a new normal. I'm homeless and I'm sort of dependent and I'm just going to keep going. And in my mind, I'm not thinking of, I got to get home. I got to be home. I got to find comfort at home. You're not getting that material comfort is taken away, and you're left to find a comfort in dependence on God. And it's the beauty of the joy of the renunciate is you take away all the material comforts and you're left with nothing except to cry or to surrender to the higher self. So a lot of us are on this gradual
You're on the path. You're on the path.
We're on a path, but we have to realize this isn't our home. We're going to lose our home. We're going to lose the things that we love, the things that we're attached to, and we have to end up at this point, this very deep point that Krishna is my shelter or God is my shelter. I have to stay connected. Even with all the stuff's going to go. It's a sandcastle. And you're sort of like jumping 2 feet in. And I'm just appreciating that that example. Thank you.
I was thinking that, Maharaj, in my eyes, you make it look easy. You know, to live without a family, to live constantly on the road, to constantly be traveling. As Raghunath is saying, a lot of the comfort, you know, usually people travel and we like it for a little while and then we get tired of it and we get homesick and then we want to go to the comforts and the certain relationships that make us feel comfortable. You've taken a lifelong vow where you're going to travel, you're going to share what you have, you're not going to stop. But again, in my eyes, you make it look easy. You make it look like it's always fun and it's always adventurous and it's full of happiness. I was wondering, could you share with us what gives you that inspiration? The things that inspire you, that might inspire us in some way, or to help us understand how a person that within themselves, what can inspire one to have that full faith that ultimately, all I need is God. Ultimately, that connection is everything.
Well, because yogic kshemam bahamyam, it's part of a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which is the classic spiritual book of all transcendentalists in India. Krishna says, for my devotee, I protect what he has and I provide what he needs. Now we can read that, but if we put it to the test, that will prove if that's a true statement. It'll prove if Krishna's actually there. Because at present we can't see him. We're not pure enough to see him. But if he says, yogic kshemam bahamyam, for my devotee, I protect him and I provide what he needs. If that happens, then your faith in Krishna increases. And this is the strength of a sannyasi, that he has very few possessions. He's a celibate monk. He doesn't have intimate relationship with ladies. And he has no bank balance. He has no security where he's going to spend the next night. But as he goes out into the world, I've experienced, and many of my godbrothers who are sannyasis, not only sannyasis, any devotee in this movement, everyone in this movement's special. It's not the sannyasis are necessarily special. They're renounced, but grihasthas are also renounced. They're also giving their lives to Krishna in various ways. They're maintaining the society. They're raising their children to be saints. But all devotees experience in their lives that Krishna does protect us. I've been on the verge of death. I can't even count how many times. It's all in my diaries. I have a series of books called The Diary of a Traveling Preacher. And people are amazed, like, how did you survive that? They just go, maybe you're lucky. I said, there's no luck. I said, it's Krishna. So you develop faith when you surrender to Krishna, and he takes care of you. So that makes the sannyasi fearless. Because what can we do with our own strength? You know, we can box, we can do karate, we can build up our immune system, we can live in a safe area. But, you know, accidents happen on the royal road. Padam padam yat vipadam natashanam. This is material world's a dangerous place. But Krishna does take a special interest in his devotees because they're very valuable, because they're giving light to the world. The world's a place of darkness, of ignorance. So devotees by their presence are enlightening people. So they're special souls in that sense. And Krishna protects them. He protects his devotees. I think for me, another impetus for being a sannyasi is that I do have a home. And my home is the world. That's my home, the world. And the people of this world are my family. Somehow or other, I mean, I'll admit I'm not a very advanced devotee. I'm a practitioner. You know, Krishna says it takes many lifetimes to become enlightened. I'm just a beginner. But I do really have the understanding that we're all part of one greater family, the family of God. We're not these bodies. We're the force within the body. We're the spark of life within the body. We're the soul. The soul gives life to this dead matter. We're not the body. We don't say, I body, we say my body, it belongs to me. So we're all spirit souls and we're all individual. We're all part of a great family in the spiritual world, and we came to the material world. So when I travel, I don't see black, white, yellow. I don't see man, woman, gay, queer. I don't see like that. I don't see Russian, German, French, Chinese. I hate this one, I like this one. I've been taught to see the soul, kind of like you would say the United Nations of the spiritual world. And where did I get that knowledge? From my guru. And that's a blessing. And where did he get that knowledge? He got that knowledge from Bhagavad Gita. Vidya vinaya sampane brahmani gavi hastuni sunichava sapakicha pandita samadarshanaha. That the humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. So when I go to a country, I feel like I'm just coming to another part of my house, another room. I was recently in Mongolia. What a contrast, America and Mongolia. And I was in outer Mongolia.
What's
People
Mongolia
don't know.
like?
Mongolia is like, I mean, the main city is okay, but outside of that, people are all herds people. They take care of goats and sheep, and it goes on for thousands and thousands of miles. They live in yurts, in little huts. And I was traveling in a Jeep with some other devotees with a big pile of Bhagavad Gitas and prasadam and kirtan. We went to those villages with the universal process of enlightenment, singing, dancing, and feasting. And the people loved it. And it brought out their spiritual nature. So when I see people becoming who they really are, spirit souls.
Maharaj, can you give us some advice? We're not renunciates. We have families, we have homes, we have apartments, we have work. What do we do? A lot of people are joining us sort of for the first time. Some people are a little bit clueless to the whole culture that we're part of, or they're new to it. What can we do if we're not ready to be monks, or if we're not ready to be monkettes, if that's a word, or if it's move to an ashram or split up? How can we add spirit to our life in our position right now? Do you have any advice for us?
Oh, I'm afraid we lost him.
Oh, he's in India right now, so.
Yeah, hopefully he'll come back soon.
I'm on the edge of my seat. Lori Pag just wrote in, we had a magical day. We were trying to meet up with Maharaj in India once, and then magically he appeared in Haridwar for like, what was it, Lori? It was like, 6 hours. And then we had this big kirtan at the banks of the Ganga with him. It was like, I tell you, when you hang out with people who are like very, very focused, just things become magical.
He's back.
Ah, here we go.
All right, Maharaj, welcome back.
This is India.
I thought I offended you. I thought you had enough of me.
No.
You wanted to just go away. Thank you.
Anyway, I made my point, right? The world's my home,
Yes,
and all the people are my brothers and sisters.
thank you.
Did you hear my question, which was, what do we do? What about spirituality for the rest of us? Like, what are we supposed to do? We have families, we have children, we have soccer. You got to bring the kids to soccer. We've got to go food shopping. We have a business, and sometimes the business is a quagmire of complications. Some of us are in debt. Some of us have a big property, small property. How do we add spirit to our life? What's very practical thing for us?
I think in every ashram, whether you're a celibate student, whether you're a married person, whether you're gradually going towards renunciation or renunciation, we all have the same life. Every morning we get up and we have our technique, we have our meditation beads, and we all chant 16 times around the beads every day. We have Tulsi plants, a sacred plant, which we all worship every morning. We have a ceremony where we sing prayers to the spiritual master. We offer food to Krishna on the altar, and then we go to work. And this is a huge organization. It takes capital, it takes land, it takes schools, it takes so many things to help. You could say the sannyasis are just the mouthpiece, but there's a huge support system behind it. And as we can see from yourself, Raghunath, you do as much preaching, or maybe more than I do, with your wisdom of sages and all your traveling around America and your yoga groups and sessions. You know, there's no restriction. A person can share Krishna consciousness, you know, when they get home at 5 o'clock till 9 o'clock at night. They can go on the weekends. They can take people on treks to India or Mount Kailash or Tibet. You know, we can do all these things. I don't see hardly any difference. But I think the great contribution of the married people is raising Krishna conscious children, because the world desperately needs saintly men and saintly women. And we generally think of a spiritual tradition having a few saints in the past. Like, why not now? If the process is authentic, if you're being a good Christian, a good Muslim, a good Jew, Buddhism's a little different because they're all monks, but you know, the world needs a special class of people that's very much missing, pure people who live a clean, healthy life, free from sinful activity. So, you know, it's an investment, I think, the householder life of bringing forth future people who can share wisdom with the world, because spiritual knowledge is really lacking. And because of that, people are misguided, they're making mistakes. So we need more enlightened souls. Why not an army of enlightened souls so we can make the world a better place?
You know, it's interesting you said that. I was once taking a workshop with a very, very popular yoga teacher in the yoga community in the West. And he said something very, very sanguine. We've done so much when it's come to asanas and vinyas, and people have taken it to new heights, it seems. But he was saying it sort of in a humorous way, but it hit me so hard. He said, "But we're yet to we're yet to create a saint or a sadhu." And I was thinking that, yeah, because no one teaches the foundations of yoga anymore. We walk right in the door and we're breathing and moving our body, but we're missing like the foundational level of the yamas and niyamas, how you behave, your behavior, your thoughts, your speech, and then the higher limbs of yoga, the meditation, and what do we meditate on, and what's the goal of meditation. And it seems like we've missed out. So it's almost like I say, Mara, here's a lawnmower, mow the lawn. I've never used a lawnmower. How do you start the lawnmower? What do you put in the lawnmower? How do you sharpen the blades of the lawnmower? How do you even mow a lawn if you've never seen something like that? So we're coming into this yoga process, and we promote the sexier parts of it, but we neglect the parts that actually make it cut the grass. And so I love how you're putting this into perspective, that saints or holy people or mystics, they come through, but you have to have the whole instruction manual and not just a few pages of it. And what's very beautiful is your guru has sort of given the whole picture of how to do this properly. And it actually is transformative. You are a perfect example of a person who's been transformed from your childhood catching rattlesnakes and playing on the varsity football team and etc. And now you're living a whole different life. It's connected, but it's actually completely different, and it's actually quite beautiful because the teachings. I mean, if you were not into a spiritual life at all. You'd be a charming, interesting, charismatic person. But because you got into it, you've actually transformed into a sadhu. Like, this is a practice that creates deep transformation. And what we talk about in the past of, like, you know, the saint this or that, or saint her or saint him, of Assisi, Saint Francis of Assisi. It's like the practice transforms people's consciousness, and it's still living. It's not just we have to hear about these saints of the past. Thank you. That's all I have to say. Sometimes I get all worked up and it just cuts.
Raghunath, you've got a little one sitting behind you on your right.
I'm working on this guy.
Yeah, he's going to travel with me, he said one day.
Yeah, by your mercy, you've touched him on the forehead, and he's transforming.
He's a good boy.
Maharaj, you've told one story about how you were traveling with Srila Prabhupada, but you got left behind at one point, and you wanted to be there for, I think, where he was being greeted. The temple was going to be excited, but you gained a special lesson from that. Could you share that story with us?
Yeah, well, that's connected to that first trip we made to Europe to help open up centers in France and Germany and Italy and Spain. So when I heard that I was one of the boys who was chosen to go, I found out what flight Srila Prabhupada was on, my guru was on. I got on the same flight. I found out the seating, and I got myself to sit right next to him. So we sat together the whole way to London, and some discussion went on. And then we got to London, and there was a big kirtan to receive Srila Prabhupada, and the bags were coming. And suddenly they realized one of Prabhupada's bags was missing, a lot of the books that he carries. So because we'd become familiar, he knew me. He said, "So, Indradyumna, you stay back and you get the bag and come to the temple afterwards." So this is Heathrow Airport. The temple's downtown London, and I heard the Beatles were going to be there.
Oh,
because
wow.
at that time in our movement, George Harrison was very much involved. He actually told us one time that he wrote that song, "Here Comes the Sun." He wrote that for Prabhupada.
Oh, wow.
We heard him say that. Yeah, "Here Comes the Sun." He wrote that for Prabhupada. He was very much involved in it. One time he asked Prabhupada, "Should I shave my head and move in the temple?" Prabhupada said, "No, just stay where you are, chant Hare Krishna, and teach Krishna consciousness through your music." That's Bhakti-yogi again. So, but I was a devotee. I was a new devotee, and I thought, I want to meet George and Ringo and Paul. And, I'm going to miss them. And there was going to be a big feast. But, my guru's order. So I stayed, and 2 hours later, the bag came. I could have cursed that bag. I dragged it to the taxi. It was raining. It was typical British weather. Put it in the back of the taxi. The taxi driver said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "Seven-Bury Place." He said, "Boy, did you get out on the wrong side of the bed this morning?" I said, "Sorry, sir." Drove me to the temple, got out of the taxi, dragged the bag up the steps to the front door, opened it up, and there was 100 devotees sitting around in the main area of the temple there, kind of on their sides, like, "Oh, that was a fantastic feast we just had. That was the best Hare Krishna feast we ever had." I was starving. Says, "Hey guys, did you save me any prasadam?" "Who are you?" "Nothing's left." I was like really upset. I said, "So can somebody help me take this bag up to Prabhupada's room?" "Oh no, we're so tired." So it turned out to be a real blessing. So I dragged that, these English stairs are like this. I dragged it up the stairs. I hadn't eaten hardly anything, even on the airplane. I hadn't slept. I'm tired. There's Prabhupada's door. I didn't bother knocking. It's not the proper etiquette. I opened the door. I turned around and I dragged the suitcase in backwards. And suddenly his secretary said, "Watch out. "You're going to bump into Srila Prabhupada." And I froze. And I turned around and Prabhupada was just like this, with a smile on his face. And immediately, you know, when you see the guru, he's Krishna's representative, he's your teacher, he's pulling you out of material existence, he's taking you back to the spiritual world where every step's a dance, every word's a song, there's a festival every day. How can you ever repay the debt you have to your spiritual master? He gives you everything, moksha, liberation, and bhakti. Boom, I hit the ground. Right at his feet, and all of a sudden, I feel this huge slap on my back. Whack! Really hard. I thought, oh, Prabhupada must be very upset with me. I can still feel it. I think if I ever get a tattoo, I don't have tattoos, I would just have that hand tattooed right there, my master's hand. And then his feet left and he went for his oil massage somewhere, sandalwood oil massage. I got up and he said something quite loudly, but I didn't hear it. So I stood up and his secretary was there with his mouth open. And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Srila Prabhupada slapped you on the back." I said, "Yeah, I know. He said he did it in firm appreciation." I said, "Oh, really? What did he say?" And tears came to his eyes. The secretary said, "Oh, so nice." He said to you, "Indradyumna, so much endeavor in this material world, but when I take you back to Godhead, everything will be easy and sublime. So much endeavor in this material world, but when I take you back to Godhead, everything will be easy and sublime." Then I broke down crying, the big tough Marine, because that touched my heart. That was real bhakti. So I can say quite frankly, it's not easy to travel. You know, there's bed bugs and there's people that come and want to fight. We've been in many violent encounters in different parts of the world. We were in Sarajevo, we got attacked. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, it's okay. As Prabhupada said, it's difficult, but he's taking me home. So I can stay here.
She's leaving at 12:30. Rocco wants to run.
It's a beautiful story.
Incredible.
Maharaj, we also, you know, for our people here, you know, a lot of our Wisdom of the Sages listeners, it's a wide variety. A lot of them are very new to bhakti, but they've taken an interest in, you know, it's actually thousands of people listen every day. And it's become, you know, Raghunath and I, it wasn't even by design, but it just kind of happened that we did it every day, that we do this show every day, and we read Bhagavatam every day. And we found that what happened was that it became a sadhana for people. It became, because it's one thing if you do something every week, but if you do it every day, it starts to change your life. And so we get so many letters of people that are very new to this, but they can feel that hearing Bhagavatam every day, it's changing things. It's changing the way they see the world. It's changing the way they want to live. It's stirring up their hearts in different ways. Could you speak to us a little bit about, say, whether it's just the Srimad Bhagavatam itself or the Shastras, these ancient texts, and how the verses from them inspire you in your devotional life?
Well, I think each and every verse, every line of every verse, every word of every verse is a great inspiration for anyone who's on the path of bhakti. Of course, we all have our favorite verses that we relate to. I think it's only natural. We're all spirit souls, but we have our different constitution. People have different tastes in culinary food. For me, again, one of my main impetuses in Krishna consciousness, where I get my taste, where I experience the nectar, which keeps me going for 50 years as a transcendentalist, as a monk, is in the chanting of the holy names. And I think people who are familiar with your program, they'll have heard many times that it's the main process. And it's a process which is especially meant for the people of this age. As we know, just like the year goes through 4 seasons, and we dress differently according to those seasons, So creation, according to ancient Vedic philosophy, it time and again it goes through four seasons. They're called yugas or ages. And in each age, there is a different spiritual technique, a different spiritual process, because the times are different, people are different. Previously, people used to be more spiritually advanced, believe it or not. We're materially advanced, but previously people were more spiritually advanced. So they had different technique for every age, but this is a troublesome age. We're just beginning this age, actually, the age of Kali Yuga. You read the newspapers, it's just anxiety. It's going to get worse.
It's anxiety.
Life is short, a memory is short. So there's a process. Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam. Kulo nashteva, nashteva, nashteva bhatiranyatha. The process recommended is 3 words. Hare Krishna and Rama in the form of that Mahamantra. I heard Prabhupada say that in Kali Yuga, 2 things, no matter what, retain their potency. Jewels and mantras. They're not influenced by all the bad things in this age. Jewels and mantras. So this mantra is called the king of all mantras, Maha Mantra. And it's so simple that anyone in any order of life, not just sannyasis, but you can see you guys are doing amazing sharing. Anyone in any way of life, they can chant Hare Krishna and make spiritual advancement just sitting at home. And the effect of that chanting is it destroys the karma that we've accumulated for all those millions of births that I spoke about earlier. It's not an exaggeration. Millions and millions and millions of births of karma, which is traveling with us from life to life. It's like a bag we carry from birth to birth in our hearts. It's like you delete something on your computer. When you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, uproots material desires, and then you get that taste. So I would encourage anyone who's any stage, even just the curious, to get some beads, sit down every morning, make time, and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the doors of liberation will be open to you. You'll see it just like my life. It's interesting, but why shouldn't everyone's life be interesting? We're all part and parcel of Krishna. We're all spirit souls. We haven't realized our true potential. We're not in touch with the soul, which Prabhupada said one time is 10,000 times more brilliant than the sun shining. So why not take the time to come in touch with yourself through chanting Hare Krishna, and your life will also be an adventure. I'm no one special. I've said it many times. I'm not anyone special. I'm a servant of a glorious master who's taught me this process and has taught the whole world this process. It's just that I like doing it. I like to sing. I like to dance. I like to eat. I like philosophy to make sense of it. And I like to be with people. And this is a people movement. This is a people movement. Hare Krishna is a people movement. So please chant, and then your life will open up as the great adventure of going back home to the spiritual world.
Wow,
You're a man of the people, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
And you are special. You said you're not special, but you're very special to us. You've made yourself, you've carved a place deep in our hearts. Thank you so much for joining us from India, 9,000 miles away, and inspired us all. We need some inspiration in our lives, don't we? We need people in our lives that we say, yeah, like that. I want to be like that. You're one of those people for me, Maharaj, and my family. Incredibly grateful that you're in my life. Thank you so much for joining us on Wisdom of the Sages.
Thank you, Maharaj.
And thanks to everybody who's joined us today. If you're new to this, we do this every day. If you're listening on Facebook, every day, 5 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, we do it at 8 a.m. So if you want to get on the Zoom call, it's fun. You get to see each other. You get to wave to each other. You get to write each other's secret notes. You can do that on Zoom. You just got to contact Mara, our assistant, at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And if you want to share your story with us, we'd love to hear it. Go to Apple Podcasts. Write a review. You can do it right now on your phone. How you got here, your spiritual journey home. We want to hear it. Thanks for everybody joining. And remember, this is a community-sponsored podcast. If you like what we're doing, you can contribute to us. That helps keep it going. And thanks for everybody who supports us already. In turn, we have a whole vault of information. We have weekly, it's like a yoga school, weekly classes, weekly workshops, not just yoga asanas, but that too, but workshops on Ayurveda, meditation, kirtan. It's a whole thing. And every time, even if you miss it, it's saved and you can go back. Again, that's patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. And now, Maharaj, this is the funnest part of the show. We lip sync and we dance.
Oh.